Welcome to the third episode of the Diabetic series. My name is Mutama Kurumidze. I'm a final year medical student from the Midland State University, Zimbabwe, and I help sick people, providing them with information pertaining their particular health conditions so that they live life in their best possible health state, not forgetting to point them to Christ, our greatest physician, even if they are about to or have lost hope. In this episode, we are going to discuss on the management of diabetes. In the previous episode, we have described the symptoms and complications of diabetes. We have learned on the different types of diabetes and the risk factors of diabetes. So, management of diabetes, we have the pharmacological management and the non-pharmacological management. So I shall start by describing the non-pharmacological management, which involves the lifestyle, because lifestyle remains key to the management of every disease. Even if you are on medication taking your anti-diabetics, lifestyle still plays an important role as it complements your medication as well. So I shall use the acronym NEWSTART as I describe the different lifestyle entities that we are going to follow. N stands for nutrition. We already, from the previous episodes that we did, we now appreciate that the problem with diabetics has got to do with them utilizing glucose. So it is important that they be mindful of everything that they eat, especially to glucose sources. But we are not saying they should not take glucose sources, which is the carbohydrate, but they have to be mindful. They have to eat a special type of carbohydrate. We urge our diabetics to take unrefined carbohydrate food sources. This is because unrefined carbohydrate food sources has got a low glycemic index. By a glycemic index, I'm referring to the rate at which glucose will be absorbed from the stomach into the bloodstream. So with unrefined food, this rate is appreciable and it won't cause a spike in the blood glucose levels. So that's why it is preferable that they utilize unrefined carbohydrate food sources. And for the refined carbohydrate food sources, they should really not take those because they have a high glycemic index, meaning the rate at which their glucose is absorbed from the stomach into the blood is very high, and it will elevate their blood sugar levels. Another source of glucose that they should be mindful of is the fruits. Yes, fruit has got sugar and it's a natural sugar. But compared to carbohydrates, fruits have got a lower amount of sugar. But the fact still remains that we have sugar in fruit. So in their diet, it should not be more of fruits, just like should not be more of carbohydrates. But what is it that our diabetics can freely eat? They can freely eat their vegetables, no matter the amount, because vegetables are not a significant source of carbohydrates if they have any. And also as for the protein, it's best, of course, if they take a plant-based protein, because for an animal-based protein, it will also have fats. And from our previous episodes, we also mentioned that they will not have problem with fats when glucose will then react with fats in the blood and so forth. So we try by all means that they also reduce their fat intake. So preferably want them to take their proteins from vegetable sources. But if the person is not yet vegetarian, they can eat meat, but lean meat. If it is the chicken, it has to be full of steak. That portion referred to as the breast of the chicken would be the best piece for them as it contains less fat. So I shall summarize what is referred to as the diabetic plate for you. You take a plate and then you divide it into two halves. The other half, you fill it up with vegetables because we said we want them to eat more of vegetables. The second half, you further divide it into two. The small portion, the first small portion, that's the quantity of the unrefined carbohydrate they should eat. In the other small portion, you put the protein. Note that in this plate there is no fruit. Fruit is outside because it's not a mandatory that they should eat fruit. Remember, we said it's also a glucose source. So this brings us to the question of fruit juices. Often you find diabetics freely drinking their fruit juices. This is healthy, zero sugar and everything. But be mindful that there's sugar like we have described. So it's best that they have an alternative of vegetable juice because we said vegetable, these you can freely eat. So sparingly their fruit juice, more of their vegetable juice. So that's the best nutrition for a diabetic. And then the next letter I'm going to talk about is E, which is representing exercise. By exercising, we lose weight by default. And if we have lost weight, we are not overweight and we are not obese. Remember, we mentioned obesity as a risk factor for developing diabetes. So it is important that we exercise so that we get rid of obesity. Therefore, we lower our risk of them becoming a diabetic later on in life. And also, obesity itself is a risk factor for developing the severest form of any disease. So it is important that we exercise and we get rid of the excess fat that is in us. As we exercise, we also utilize the fat in our bodies. Remember, we also said they are at the risk of developing diseases that has to do with the heart. So if we deal away with the fat, we also decrease the chances of them stroking, the chances of them becoming hypertensive, and so forth. This is why they should take exercising seriously. As we exercise, let us remember Isaiah 40 verse 31, which then says, "There will come a time where we shall run and we shall not be weary, and we shall walk and we shall not faint. And this is just for those that wait upon the Lord." So as we exercise, let us remember that we are waiting upon the Lord, and sometime we shall run and we shall not be weary. Then the next letter is W, which is representing water. Water is the best drink that any other person can have, whether you're diabetic or you're not diabetic. It is important that we stay hydrated. Diabetes itself is a risk factor for one to develop kidney disease. But kidney disease can also come with dehydration, even if you are not diabetic. So what happens is, if you are dehydrated, your blood becomes thick, and your blood flow is, the speed at which your blood flow is compromised, meaning the rate of perfusion of the kidney organ is also slowed down, and this becomes a risk for developing kidney disease if not enough blood goes to the kidney. So let's not add on to the diabetes that we have, and then we add on dehydration to the factors of having kidney disease.